Now, as skeptical as I am about Mark Zuckerberg's motives and all of that for the reasons I said, although I also have said that there's reason to believe there's some authentic component to it, I think you could say that it's motivated by personal views that he has developed over time, but he never would have announced it as the CEO of Meta had it not been for the political climate changing and the benefits he gets from doing so. Leave that aside. Even before Donald Trump was elected, Mark Zuckerberg has been not quite as explicitly as he did today, but expressing irritation toward, even warning about the dangers of the state industrial coalition, consortium that has been censoring the internet. Back in August of 2024, PBS News reported Zuckerberg says the White House pressured Facebook to, quote, censor some COVID-19 content during the pandemic, something that we obviously know from the Twitter files and from court cases. Here is what Mark Zuckerberg had said back in September of 2023 that I talked about a lot when it happened. I've referred to it since many times because this was actually quite an emphatic statement. He was talking to the utterly vacant and banal Lex Friedman, and this is what he said.
So misinformation, I think, has been a really tricky one because there are things that are kind of obviously false, right, that are maybe factual, but may not be harmful. So it's like, all right, are you going to censor someone for just being wrong? It's, if there's no kind of harm implication of what they're doing, I think there's a bunch of real kind of issues and challenges there. But then I think that there are other places where it is, just take some of the stuff around COVID earlier on in the pandemic, where there were, real health implications, but there hadn't been time to fully vet a bunch of the scientific assumptions. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of the kind of establishment on that, kind of waffled on a bunch of facts and, asked for a bunch of things to be censored that in retrospect ended up being, more debatable or true. And that stuff is really tough, right? And really undermines trust in that. And
so that was a very significant confession that the US government wasn't just pressuring Facebook to remove dissent on COVID, which would be bad enough. A lot of what they were demanding be removed, said Mark Zuckerberg, were views that turned out to either be debatable or to be outright false. Or outright true, rather. They were censoring true statements about COVID. The only thing worse than censoring dissenting political speech on the grounds of disinformation is to censor speech that's actually expressing truthful, accurate ideas. And Zuckerberg, back in 2023, before anyone knew what the outcome of the 2024 election was, obviously, was pretty emphatically and publicly complaining about the Biden administration's pressure, incessant pressure on Facebook to censor. And we saw that from the Twitter files as well. Now, just to underscore how implicated Mark Zuckerberg has been in this censorship scheme, on January 7th, 2021, the day after the event that Sonny Hostin of The View said was tantamount to the Holocaust and slavery, which was a 3-hour riot on January 6th, Zuckerberg said the following on Facebook, quote, about January 6th, quote, the shocking events of the last 24 hours clearly demonstrate that President Donald Trump intends to use his remaining time in office to undermine the peaceful and lawful transition of power to his elected successor, Joe Biden. Over the last several years, we have allowed President Trump to use our platform consistent with our own rules, at times removing content or labeling his posts when they violate our policies. But the current context is now fundamentally different. We believe the risk of allowing the president to continue to use our service during this period are simply too great. Therefore, we are extending the block we have placed on his Facebook and Instagram accounts indefinitely. Hard to trust somebody or take them seriously when they were saying that not 30 years ago and not 15 years ago, but 4 years ago. As soon as the pressure got a little too high and everybody was demanding that they take down Trump's account and prevent him from speaking, and then they instantly did that, and Mark Zuckerberg himself justified it as important to the public order. Even worse, in my view, was what Facebook and Twitter did 2 weeks before the election. Here from Business Insider, October 14th, 2020, Facebook and Twitter are choking the spread of a controversial New York Post story about Hunter Biden after questions arise about its veracity and a possible disinformation campaign. Quote, Facebook is slowing the spread of a controversial New York Post article that purportedly references emails from Hunter Biden while Facebook's fact checkers determine whether or not it's true. Facebook spokesperson Andy Stone said Wednesday Facebook is, quote, reducing the distribution of the New York Post article on its platforms while it's being fact checked. And then I believe we have the Andy Stone tweet. And I think it's worth recalling here that Andy Stone, the person who came out on behalf of Facebook to announce that they were algorithmically suppressing this reporting on Joe Biden 2 weeks before the election, until there was a third-party fact check to determine if the reporting was true. Andy Stone was a lifelong Democratic Party operative. He had worked for Barbara Boxer. He had worked for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which is intended to ensure a permanent majority for the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives. And here is the tweet that Andy Stone posted, this lifelong Democratic operative, on behalf of Facebook, once the New York Post story about Joe Biden, based on information that turned out to be completely true, once it was published by the New York Post. Here was Andy Stone and what he said. Can we put this tweet on the screen? He said, quote, while I will intentionally not link to the New York Post, I want to be clear that this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's fact-checking partners. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. There you see the tweet. Can we put that tweet back up? He's saying, just look at how snide this is. Look at how snide this is. While I would intentionally not link to that New York Post story, I won't even dignify it by acknowledging what it says. It's eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party fact-checking partners. In other words, these very groups that Mark Zuckerberg is now admitting have been politically motivated all along will determine whether or not this reporting is true and therefore whether or not Americans can hear it. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform, meaning we're choking it. We're going to prevent people from seeing it. I've written to Andy Stone and to Facebook many times asking, where is this third-party fact-checking about this story that you said was coming? Because obviously, if there had been a fact-checking process about this story, it would have concluded that these documents on which the reporting based were in fact authentic and the reporting was true. I don't think there was ever any fact-checking process. The election was only 2 weeks away. If there were, either it falsely concluded that the documents were fictitious, or they told Facebook the reporting is based on accurate information, and Facebook continued to choke it all the way up until the election. Here's the New York Post story, the very first one, October 14th, smoking gun email reveals that how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessmen to his vice presidential dad. I think there's been a lot of memory loss about what that reporting was. It had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's personal life. It was about how Hunter Biden and his uncle were pursuing business deals in Ukraine and China by trading on Joe Biden's influence in the government and promising Joe Biden profit participation in it. Obviously, provoking serious integrity concerns about Joe Biden, ethical concerns about Joe Biden. He was running his campaign on decency. And Facebook and Twitter, based on CIA lies, acted to suppress it. And then, as I said, here is NPR. I believe that date should be, this is June 4th, 2021. After they suspended him, and then they said we're going to do a process, and they ended up suspending Donald Trump for 2 years from the platform. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.